Hi, friends. I am so delighted today to bring with you two very special people from the UK. And this is Alex Goodwin and his father, Jeff. And I wanted to bring Alex on because I've followed him for several years on Twitter. And he is just an inspiring person. He's young, but he has a message for everybody. And so I'm going to just let them share their story a little bit, and then we'll talk back and forth. So, hi, Jeff and Alex. Welcome.
Hello,
No,
Debbie. It's good to see you again. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for giving us some time with you today.
Oh,
And
it's
thank you
my
for your
pleasure.
generous and kind words about my son and about what we're trying to do here. Um, I think it's very important, the work that you're doing as well, and I want to commend you
Thank you.
for the comfort that you're bringing to other people. So thank you for letting us be a part of that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you share your story a little bit. And want to make sure you share your slogan because that is such an inspiring thing. So make sure you include that as well.
Of
Okay.
course. I'm
All
going to
right.
let you introduce why you're here. Why are you here?
like through my journey and
Yeah, of course.
well, I'll try and explain it as best I can. But I remember when I was 9 years old, I ended up. We still don't know, but I got Ewing sarcoma cancer in my bone, and here in the UK, they didn't really know what it was. They thought it was several other things like growing pains, which is like the rapid growth of the bone. And I was mistreated for about a year, 9 months, I think, and overdosing chemotherapy, which inevitably led my leg into deteriorating physically. Like when I saw it after my surgery, it looked like a rusted piece of metal. That it was that bad. I They eventually found out it was cancer after some convincing, thanks to my mum and dad. And they just said I wouldn't make it. They would make me comfortable till I die, you could say. Dad wasn't having any of it and scoured the internet for answers, and we came across Kansas City with the pioneering Dr. Rosenthal for his treatment of getting the cancer out and replacing the deteriorated bone with a telescopic femur, which would extend using magnets. Dad got in touch with some of the police officers there. We eventually became friends with them. Felt very nice to be accepted to a wonderful family like my dad's police family, and I was on death's door, you could say, before I arrived. But when I arrived, we got it sorted out straight away. I wasn't really that pleasant with the surgery, felt like I was living and dead at the same time. But eventually, I came back. I had this new bone. It was actually the first one was a pure titanium femur. It wasn't the final product, since it was, we had to do it in a rush due to my legs deterioration.
Mm.
And I did intense physical therapy, and I lived in America for, at that time, was 5 months before the second surgery.
Mhm. You were living in Kansas City for up towards a year, really, and then
Yeah.
we eventually came home, and then you kept going back. So,
Mm.
yeah. So, in a nutshell, Alex was complaining of pain and discomfort in his leg. This was in just heading towards Christmas of 2015.
Around this time, yeah.
Mm. And it was quite obvious that he was having difficulty walking. He was very uncomfortable, and we tried to seek the support of the hospital and the doctors here. And in essence, he was misdiagnosed for over 6 months. Um, and eventually, they discovered that he had a very rare form of cancer that only usually affects children, called Ewing sarcoma, and it's quite unique as a form of cancer because it is not only a bone cancer but a soft tissue cancer. It can migrate from soft tissue to bone, which is quite unusual.
Mm.
And by the time that the hospitals here had identified that Alex had got Ewing sarcoma, it had spread, it had metastasized into his hip, and it almost completely destroyed his femur in his right leg. So sadly, they told us that there was nothing that they could do for him, and they would make him comfortable until the end. Um, I did a lot of research, and we identified that there were some pioneers, particularly in Kansas City. Kansas City kept coming up all the time in the research that I was doing, and I reached out as a police officer. I'm a serving police officer. I'm very proud to serve. I've been a policeman for 20 years now, and I reached out across the policing community in the first instance, internationally, primarily in Canada and the United States as well as the UK, and eventually identified that Kansas City, Kansas University Hospital had the expertise and were pioneering a new process that would be able that said that they thought that they could save him. So we raised a tremendous amount of money in a very short space of time. We were very lucky that we had some very uh, notable celebrities or persons that gifted us a lot of money to support us. And Alex went over to America and had the surgery.
We
And
stayed with a very kind family.
yes,
Mm.
that story in itself is very very simplistic, and as a Christian, I wrote a book. I actually started writing the book as Alex was ill, not really because I just it was quite cathartic for me, and I found it quite it was a way for me to try and order my thoughts. The
Uh,
book's called Alexander's Journey, Dum Spiro Spero, which is Latin for
we breathe, we hope.
and we think that that encapsulates Alex's story, his ethos, his mentality, in that where there's life, there's hope, and this dogged determination never to give in, and to constantly try to hope, to dare to hope. And
Mm.
I do feel that I explain that story in a very simplistic way, but in a, as a Christian, for me, obviously, it did challenge my faith. But I then became emboldened by my faith, and genuinely felt that I wouldn't lose him. And even someone that isn't religious, well, if they read the book, you can't discount the number of coincidences or unusual set of circumstances that come to pass in the story, in this journey that we sort of weaved over a period of years. And as a Christian, I do believe that God is there for us, but in essence, we forge our own destinies. We have to live within God's way, but ultimately, God's not going to bail us out every time things get a little bit difficult, and we ultimately have to have faith in Him, and have the courage from Him, and the circumstances that brought Alex and myself to America. The chief of police in Kansas City, Mr. Chief Terry Ziegler, who's now retired, he there was two of his officers were brutally murdered in the
In the line of
in the
duty.
line of duty in two very awful sets of circumstances, and that shook Terry's faith and shook him as a person, because whilst he clearly didn't, he felt that he had failed these two people who were his officers, were his friends. um, and those set of circumstances brought some of the doctors from KU to reach out, who were also Christians, to reach out to the police department and offer donations of support for their families. And one doctor, Dr. Lou Wetzel, who is now a very close family friend of ours,
We
um,
treat him as family.
I treat him as a father to myself and a grandfather to Alex.
Mm.
He reached out to Terry Ziegler and explained that if there was anything that he could do, he gave him his contact details. And then further on down the line, over the period of time, Terry Ziegler was just browsing for something inspirational and stumbled across Alexander's social media site. And
Dad actually set it up with
yeah,
one of his police friends to keep up with, like, what was going on at the time, because like, at that point we didn't know whether I was going to live, and I think Dad just wanted a bit of memory of me left before I left.
bless you. We decided to set up a social media account for Alex when he was diagnosed. one, to try and raise awareness of the situation that we were under, because as parents we knew deep down in our souls that Alex was very ill, and it was about trying to persuade medical experts that we knew something wasn't right. My wife had that inherent sort of innate mothering feeling that something wasn't right, and Alex was more. Uh, Originally, we were told that he had a bone infection, that he had growing pains, and there was a number of different Perthes disease. So there was a number of different diagnoses that we were assured were the correct diagnosis, but we knew it wasn't. And so Chief Ziegler from Kansas City Police found Alex's social media page and drew some inspiration from it. Alex, whilst he was very ill, was always very upbeat, as I'm sure you've seen from from his social media. Alex is. I'm speaking about my son as if he's not here, but he clearly
I'm a
is.
man.
um, he's passionate about nature, and one of the things that, even as his father, which I realise I have a very biased view, was that he cares more about other people than himself. And even when he was ill and in pain and distress every single day, he still thought about others. He thought about God's creations, God's nature, God's animals, and he cares more about people than himself. And those attributes just made me think that there was no way that I was going to lose him, because he was so precious, and God had a plan for him. And as you can, obviously, you've read the book, Debbie. I know you've read it. We've talked about that in the past. It's a story about hope and about inspiration, and a story about good people coming together. And I think that's part of. I think that's where what the good work that you're doing mirrors the work that the experience that we had, in that, sometimes people who are strangers become friends because of kindness and goodness, and people come together because, despite everything that's happening in the world and everything that's wrong and evil that's happening in the world, there's still good people there, and good people need to come together, and we need to care for each other. And this is going back to what I was saying about Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, and the writings in John and Ezekiel, and 34, which relate to God being our shepherd. And obviously, we spoke as well about the fact that those writings are very close to me and interest me because of the fact that I'm a policeman, and I feel like I'm a shepherd, or perhaps more a shepherd dog, a sheepdog, protecting the flock. Um, and the story is very powerful. I know I wrote it, and it came from my heart and from my soul. But I do feel that the work that you're doing about bringing people together and offering hope and comfort, especially at Christmas time, is so valuable. And we experienced an overwhelming sense of love from strangers that wanted to help, and we all came together. And
Eventually, through that, some of them became family friends.
that's true. Yeah, we have many people who we met now. We speak to them regularly, even though they live in Kansas City and Missouri, Kansas.
Lou and Jane Wetzel, who are very Christian, and
Yeah.
I think they really helped me. Jane wasn't played the organ.
Yes.
I remember.
Yeah, Jane, Dr. Wetzel's wife, Jane. I write about them in the book, and weave the tapestry of their lives in the book as well. And while we were in America, we actually attended a Lutheran church because Dr. Wetzel was a Lutheran, of the Lutheran faith. But despite where you go, Church of England, Lutheran, Methodist, Catholic, all these,
Protestant.
yeah, all the underlying essence of Christianity is that we come together. And I think that'll be more important as well as we progress in time in the next decades to come. I think Christianity will come together much more closely, in my opinion.
Alex,
He
how
is
are
the
you?
son
I'm
of God.
good, I'm fine.
Alex, how are you? Why don't you tell everybody how you're doing now? What's going on with you right now?
I feel like for me, life is turning pretty well for me right now. Like, since those days and coming back to America back and forth, I've had blessings really in my life. Not like winning the lottery. I mean, we would like to help people with that sort of money, give them a life, but yeah. mainly like we've set up foundations in America that can't help people that can't afford physical therapy treatment during or after or even probably before chemotherapy treatment or cancer treatment. And one of our friends, Gabby, who was my physical therapist in America, we've actually helped her because that was her dream to help people, and I'm just
Mm.
happy that a friend of ours can have that dream come true. And I
Yeah.
feel like through my hardships as well, I've had some great things come in my life. Like, of course, my owl Willow.
Yes. My son's a keen falconer and passionate about nature. He has an owl. But it's interesting what you were saying about Gabby, in that Gabby lost her sister to Ewing sarcoma, and
Mm.
the loss of her sister, somebody so close to her that she nurtured and cared for right up to the end of her days, gave her a fire and a passion and an inspiration to provide oncology rehabilitation treatment. So she left her native home of Costa Rica and lived in a car to enable her to be able to pay for her studies in America. She came to America because that was the place where the skills and the knowledge and the expertise were, and she wanted to gain this knowledge. And yeah, in order to survive financially, she lived in a car most of the time, and studied and earned her qualifications in physical therapy treatments, specializing in oncology treatments, and she helped us to create um, an organization.
Alexander's
uh,
Journey Cancer Rehab.
yeah, and there's a small clinic that we try and help people that can't afford insurance or can't afford to pay for their oncology physical therapy. So yeah, that's a powerful story. And this is another example of my son saying that he's blessed, but you know as well as I do that every day he's struggling at the moment. He's in pain all the time because the prosthetic femur that he had in his surgery is now cannot extend any further.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that, like,
Yeah,
about what our plans are now, like in the future.
yeah. So we're at a point now where the original plan was always for Alex to have a final surgery when he reached skeletal maturity, when he was about 18 years of age.
2024,
Yeah,
probably.
and that was always the plan. But we genuinely were hopeful that the National Health Service in England would do that for us after we had raised all this money without their support and got Alex to America, and we came back home. And sadly, the NHS have declined to provide Alex with that
They
support.
want to take full responsibility of me, and they originally intended in, you could technically say, causing more bodily harm to me than actually helping me.
Well, their proposal to deal with Alex's growth was to burn his growth plates in his healthy leg and to pin them so that he wouldn't grow anymore, which would then remove the need for him to have a new adult prosthetic implanted into his right leg. As a father, as a human being, I could not allow that to happen. And Alex, obviously I've discussed it with Alex. He's not a child anymore. He's not an adult yet, but he's not a child, and there's something we feel strongly about. So we made the decision to do everything we can to try and raise the money so that he can have that final surgery.
We've
Uh,
moved it to 2023 now just because of how rapid I'm growing.
Yeah, so Alex is going through such a growth spurt that what's happening is that the misalignment of his spine and his hip due to the huge disproportionality of one leg to the other is causing him to have a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
Don't forget you're on the camera, young
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
man. He's yawning and stretching.
That's
Not you.
okay.
Okay, just
It's
stretching
okay.
then. And So we made a decision. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been corresponding with Kansas University Hospital, and we've come up with some estimates. A lot of the staff that have been involved in Alex's care previously have volunteered to work for free,
Mm.
and the hospital itself are giving us up to 50% discount on some of the treatment because they feel part of this process. They feel that they're invested in Alex's health, having to gone through this journey with us for the last 5 years. So we've identified a figure of £250,000, which is about
A
300, about 300,
quarter of a
yeah,
million. Yeah.
which is about $310,000. which will cover everything that we need to get Alex from literally from today up to his surgery in the beginning of 2023, and then to the sort of rehabilitation that he would need.
Physical therapy, osteopathy, and
Yeah,
then of course, like, having to, like,
have the checks. So
yes.
he had the checks afterwards as well. So we've costed it out as best we can to pay for the flight, for the accommodation. We can stay with people. We have friends over there, but we can't assume to place a burden on them when Alex has just gone through major surgery. So it's a bold step, but I have faith that I'm financially exhausted, Debbie. We rent a house now. My house is I don't own a house anymore. We had to sell almost everything we had to supplement Alex's treatment abroad, and this is something that obviously is unusual to us as English people, in that we have a national health service,
Mhm.
and that's free medicine, but that free medicine comes with a price, and ultimately they decided that it wasn't in their cost benefit analysis to save Alex's life, and they decided that they couldn't do that. And they also decided now that it wasn't proportionate for them to give him the final surgery, and they wanted to burn his growth plates to stop him from growing. And to be honest, I find that barbaric.
Yeah.
So we made the decision.
We did speak to Dr. Rosenthal about it, and he said
Yes,
that was a decision, but it'd be more harmful for me. And plus, even if we did pin this, it would need replacing anyway in
in
the
the
next.
future. So invariably, if they didn't do the job properly now, when he reaches 20, 30 years of age, he would probably need some further work doing anyway.
Mhm.
So it was it, it was without question that we were going to have to pursue this, and I feel it's the right decision. I can't do it on my own. I need the help of, once again, I'm reaching out to good people to help me to make sure my son continues to have a quality of life. There is a chance that he will go back into a wheelchair
Yeah,
temporarily because of the,
probably.
yeah, before the surgery, but he can't have the surgery any sooner because he's still growing. And if he has the surgery now, then invariably they would have to gauge an estimate how much more growth he has before they can put a final prosthetic. So, in essence, the surgery is less invasive this time, in that they'll still have to obviously perform the surgery, but instead of removing, in the original surgery, his hip was pelvic bone, his hip was reconstructed, his tibia was reconstructed, he had a completely resected femur. And what they will do this time is just remove the middle part of the femur, which is the part that was telescopic.
Mhm.
So they'll remove that part of it and replace it with a permanent titanium adult uh, piece,
Mhm.
which is significantly cheaper. The femur that the original femur that Alex has cost us $92,000,
Wow.
and that was with a 25% discount as well. So that should give you an idea of the cost of these things.
Mhm.
Um, so he will have that surgery, and I'm hopeful, and I'm praying that
Yeah.
we'll get the support that we need.
We don't like to, like, ask people for help with money and that sort of stuff, but, like, I want to make sure, like, I have a future, and I've been planning, like, what I would like to do to help people. Like, my dad has a publishing company that helped publish the book Arcane Press, and I want to try and help expand it in the future and use that money to help charities and donations, while also providing for my family as well.
I know
I'm going to
you're.
keep him. I'm going to have to keep him, Debbie, aren't I?
He's amazing. Alex, how old are you now?
14 and a half.
14. Wow. Well, I know you're very open about your journey, and you share some of your therapy sessions, and it's you do not have an easy life. But one thing I know about you is you always try to put on a brave face, and you try to encourage others even in the midst of your pain. And I know that your reach has been very far reaching. You just, I have a feeling you won't know this side of heaven how many lives you have impacted and touched with your courage and your faith, and just that's one of the things I loved about you is I just see you all the time just trying to encourage others even as you're hurting. And I think that a lot of adults could learn from you and your example.
That's very true, Debbie. Bless you.
So that's one of the reasons I wanted to introduce you to my followers, because I know a lot of people are dealing with cancer and stuff right now, and it's scary, and we're human, it's we can't say that those things aren't difficult, but you just have had such a great attitude, and I think that there's a lot to be learned from you. And so I'm hoping that that's one thing that people can take away from this interview is that you've got to have hope no matter what we deal with.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
um, and one day at a
Consider
time with God's help, we get through it. And Jeff, you and your wife, I have a special needs son who has multiple disabilities, and so I know what it's like to have to advocate and fight doctors, and you become a warrior for your child. And
it is.
so
I look up to this man.
God bless you.
You
yeah,
No,
are
it's
you are a kind, honest man who knows how to protect people, and I can promise you that you'll be a great role model for your grandchildren, maybe even more than me.
okay. Bless you.
it's that's what always comes across too. You have such a close family, and you have a little sister, Alex, Sophia, is that right? How
Yeah,
old is she
Sophia.
now?
Sophia's 9 now.
Yeah, she's
Nine.
She,
nine.
she. I think sometimes I forget that she's 9, and because she acts like she's 29. But yeah, no, Sophia's a happy little girl as well. She's getting older. Everybody's getting older. When this journey first started, when Alex first became ill, she was 4 years old.
Wow.
So it shaped her as well, and you know. This need to triumph over adversity has affected the whole family and everybody else. So
Yeah.
And you have had, like you alluded to it, but you have had a lot of celebrities reach out. That's how I found you. William Shatner shared your story and said you should follow this young boy. He's an inspiration, and I know
we've, we've been fortunate to meet Mr. Shatner a few times, and
Yeah,
really,
he's
Dad loves Star Trek, haven't he? Told
I'm a
me
bit
about
of a sci-fi in my day. Yeah, Mr. Shatner's been really kind to us, and
Steve Actual,
Steve Backshall
and
and Bo
mainly,
Derek, Diana Gabaldon.
and probably my favorite idol, and my other, well, mentor besides
Mhm.
you is Nigel Marven. Most people don't really remember him, but he was a famous zoologist, like the early Steve Backshall of the
Yeah,
2000s.
mm,
Did many documentaries about dinosaurs, and
he worked with David Attenborough when
uh,
when he was just starting in his career. He's passionate about conservation and passionate about wildlife, and that's something that Alex and I share. In that, you know,
I've always wanted to meet him when I was younger. I have most of his DVD collections, and I remember having such fond memories watching them even today. And like,
you have a passion for history as well.
yeah, like the adventures that I could have with him, and not only I got to meet him, but we've actually become friends with him, and I feel like that's a chapter of my life that I didn't expect I'd complete at such an early age, like becoming friends with my idol, my mentor,
Yeah,
with when it comes to these
yeah.
things.
yeah, we've been very lucky in that many, if you want to call them celebrities, many celebrities have reached out to us and have been touched by Alex's journey as well. And that has fundamentally helped us. And we had a large cash donation when Alex was first ill from a family that won the lottery. And they saw
Wow.
Alex's story on local television and gifted us a large amount of money. Which basically kick-started the process, and people have been so kind and generous, and social media is a very fickle thing, isn't it?
It's a
And
double-edged sword.
yeah, social media is a very double-edged sword, and there's a lot of not very nice things out there, but we managed to use it like you have as a force for good,
Mhm.
and a force to connect. And we've been very fortunate in that Alex has 42,000 followers on Twitter now, and we have regular interaction with a lot of the people that are on there with him. Like you mentioned before, that we do have people have contacted us saying that they are touched by Alex's journey and he has helped them deal with their own problems. And everyone's carrying scars and everyone's carrying issues. And
burdens in their life.
yes, and just because you can't see it doesn't mean that people aren't struggling. And I think that's important as human beings, that we need to look after each other and reach out for each other and be kind. It's
Yes.
about being kind, really.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
thing that makes us human.
Yes.
yes, for sure. Um, what would you, Alex, do you have something that you would say to someone that is battling cancer or an illness themselves? What words of encouragement would you like to
I
offer?
would say that no matter how much it hurts, you can't give up. Everyone has a dream that they would like to achieve, and little something that goes on inside you is not going to stop you. You just need to push on, and with the right help, and if you still got your spirit in your heart, anything is possible really. Whether you want to help people, or like start a foundation or something, anything is possible. And you just need the right ideas, and family and friends, and of course God to help you. And inevitably your battle will one day be over. And you can have a normal life and just enjoy it to its fullest. This is why I have to say, you can't just give up on life. Like, if you are lying in a hospital bed like I did, I mean, like, I did have some bad thoughts. Like, I didn't want to be here anymore. I wanted it all to end, and even I say it still sometimes, because, like, it's a lot to deal with. But you can't just give up. You need to live it to the fullest, and just enjoy this beautiful world that God has created for us, a paradise for every living thing.
That's great advice. And I know it's easier said than done. It's kind of like one day at a time, isn't it? You just,
It's always been every day at a time, hasn't it?
yeah,
That's the people place too many burdens on themselves sometimes, and life is hard, and every day is a victory sometimes when you're in a dark place or you feel like you're alone.
yes,
But yeah, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but I will fear no evil,
right.
for thy rod and staff they comfort me. And this is what people need to understand, is that sometimes we place a burden on ourselves with our grief and the expectations that we have of ourselves, and sometimes we need to understand that life is there, and we need to take one day at a time. I completely understand that, and especially as a police officer, some of the things that I've dealt with and some of the people that have come to my attention because of the places that they're in, very dark places. um, you have to take one day at a time. You're completely right, Debbie. And but one day leads to another.
That's right. That's right. And it's okay if you have a bad day. Tomorrow's the has the possibility of a brighter day and a better day.
The
So
sun will always come up on the next day.
yes,
That's guaranteed.
Mm.
Light will always chase away the darkness without a fail. And we know that as a certainty, and that's God's gift to us.
yes. Jeff, what would you say to parents of someone that's dealing with an illness or an injury or something? What tangible steps would you recommend to help them get through what they're facing?
I think it's important to have hope and faith. And I think you have to accept that you're only human yourself, and you can't carry that burden on your own. And I tried, and you do your best, but ultimately, you know, we, you know, we need to reach out to other people for help and support, even if it's only just someone to talk to, someone to help them understand your predicament. But I would completely mirror what my son has said. Is to never give up. You must never give up. I came from a generation of people that believed that doctors knew best. You could trust policemen, you could trust teachers, because there was an order, there was a structure, and there was an order in society. And I think sadly that structure is slightly
Fallen.
fallen or decaying now. And I think you need to take your inspiration from God and hope from God, but you need to be true to yourself, and have confidence in yourself, but don't think that you are a one-man army. You're not. This is why we live in communities. We have friends, we have supporters, and there's no embarrassment or shame to ask people for help,
Right.
because we're not an island, are we?
No. And there's strength in numbers. And
Of course.
I'm sure it has probably helped you to know that there's people that you'll never even know who, but they're praying for you and thinking of you all around the world. That's I think that's a blessing that that highlights to me part of your story, is that even in the midst of hard times, there's blessings in the midst of it. And it's our job to look for those, and that helps give us courage to keep
Of course.
fighting. So you
You've
guys
got
have
it.
been so wonderful about that. Just, you're very real. You don't sugarcoat things. You share your journey.
Sometimes a bit of sugar is nice.
but you always are looking ahead to brighter days and trying to share hope and encouragement. And I thank you for that you're a light. You may not feel like it at times, but you are a light. And I'm just so proud of you, Alex, as a mom. You're an amazing young man, and I know your
You're an
parents are
amazing
so
person.
proud of you. So I am going to put the links to your book and your website and how people can get in contact with you and follow your journey. And I would like to say to anyone out there, if you're looking for a wonderful gift to give to someone for Christmas, buy their book, and it will be a blessing to the person you give it to, and it will bless them and help Alex get the treatment that he needs. And,
Every penny of profit from the book sale comes directly to help us. There's no intermediary. There's no every single dollar, every single cent, every single dime that we get from the sale of the book comes directly to help us with our goal.
yeah. And one person you didn't mention, the Mark Hamill, who played Luke in
Yes,
Star Wars. He
yeah.
did your intro to your book.
He did, yes.
Yeah,
It was very nice corresponding with him. We've not kept in touch with him, sadly, but he was very kind, not only to Alex but to me as well. So yeah, I feel like I've wronged him there by not mentioning him, and he was very kind to us, and he's a very exceptional person.
Yeah. We are very much sci-fi geeks in this house. Star Wars and Star Trek.
Always Star Wars and
Yeah.
Star Trek, yeah. And Doctor Who, of course.
Oh yes, of
We've been
course.
very lucky. We've had a few of the doctors reach out to us as well. So.
Oh, that's
Sylvester McCoy. No,
Peter
not
Capaldi and
Paul McGann, Colin Baker.
yeah.
wow. That's awesome.
My dream though one day is to meet Tom Baker and Peter Davidson, two doctors my dad grew up watching.
Yes, that's true.
Well, that would
giving
be.
my age away now.
Well, I think I'm a lot older than you are, so I don't know
doubt
what that
that.
does. But I'm so happy that we could connect here today
Yes.
and make this happen. And so we'll just get this out to people in the next few days, and we'll just pray that this will bless many people and give them hope and encouragement on their own journeys, and just ask God to bless this effort to help you with your treatment. So, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bless you. Peace be with you.
Peace be
Same with you.
And have a Merry Christmas.
And a
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Same to
Thank
you
you,
guys.
Danny.
Thank you.
We'll speak again soon, I'm sure.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. God bless
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you very much.